to speak. They were born at around the time Kenya was hailed as the most optimistic nation. But after that period of 2002, we've gone through 3 elections, all of which have been hotly contested and disputed. The results that gave us the leaders that we have in a way not been cleared as we went through a free, fair, and credible election. They are the same people who promises were made to, but these promises were not delivered. They were born at a time when the promise of free primary education was given. But then they have seen their parents pay money to schools throughout. So they wonder, if the government said we are going to have free primary education, how come I have seen my parents pay for my school fees through my whole life? And then they are the same people to whom laptops were promised. And I'm glad in the soundbite we've had, there is someone that voiced it. A laptop is something tangible. They did not actually see that come to be. Yes, they saw gadgets brought, but then they have not seen the value of that. So we can try and understand where they are coming from. That participating in an election gives us leaders who have given promises that they have not kept. So they may not see the need, but we must caution them at this point that the only way things change is if they engage with the political process, not just the end product, that's the election, but be part of the political parties. When they are called to give input in a public participation platform, let them do so. So we can understand where they are coming from, that they are from a very disenfranchised generation.
Talking of being disenfranchised, Muthiora, there is, talk that whereas on the, on location or, in various parts of the country, in physical locations, that is, they are not coming out to register as voters. They're not disengaging themselves in political discussions. But online, on social media, they are. How then do you transfer all this very heavy social media activity to transfer to, heeding the call to register as voters on the ground, if you could call it, and, these people who so much need these policies enacted and passed for them, then come out to register as voters? Our
structures and processes are not responsive most times to the needs of Kenyans, which is where we fail. You've noted, and correctly so, that in the social media scene, they are very active and they are actually engaging with the registration process. What IEBC needed to do was to study and analyze the target population for this exercise, and they failed to do that. Even when you look at the messaging that they have done to try and lure these new voters to come and register, it's not focused to how these people go about their lives. So there is need to understand Kenyans. So IEBC needs to do better. They need to engage the actors in that scene to amend the law so we can allow for registration that does not require one to physically go to a station. After all, we've been engaging with the Huduma number and the amalgamation of all data sets that a citizen has. Maybe it's time we look at how that can aid a process such as the one we are doing, because clearly there is a section of our population that does not believe so much in physical contact or showing up for something when there is an alternative. Remember that the generation we are talking about is one that's very discerning. They are the people who, in Kenya's history, ask the most questions. And gladly, they are also the section of the population that is actually proactive. They provide solutions. So if our institutions can work with these people, then we will minimize the risk of leaving out a huge chunk of our population.
And this block, 18 to 35 years, this age group is one that not only shapes conversations online, but also is the target, but perhaps there has been the flip side of we've seen the leaders themselves perhaps calling on them, on young people to come out and vote. You did see here what, our ODM Secretary General Edwin Sifuna had to say, to try and lure the youth. Are those some of the things that perhaps should be used? Have the priorities of young people changed, if you could call it?
That actually goes to show how misunderstood they are by the people who actually make policy. Because yes, there is a section of that population that's excited by partying, but there are also those who are into other things. Talk about, for instance, our athletes, the people putting Kenya on the map. Majority of them are in that section of the population. But for them to excel, they do not engage in that party-like kind of life. And it's not a small population. So our leaders need to do better to understand who they are leading. Otherwise, they'll find themselves on a path and nobody is following. Like we've seen IEBC lately. They thought they were going to excite this section of the Kenyan population, and they've ended up getting very disappointed. So, again, let's not take anyone for granted. Kenyans are not the same way they were a couple of years ago. The society has morphed into a more sophisticated people. Let us address their needs. Let us not try to hope to see things. Let us see them for what they really are. And that is, we are not engaging them based on what their needs are.
Indeed, and the population and the priorities and the needs of these age brackets have changed. And perhaps what would be, by your assessment, even as someone who has vied before and has intentions to vie again, what are these issues, the bone of contention issues? Is it unemployment? Is it, apart from education, what are the issues that perhaps young people need addressed by whoever is in the policy making? Because right now you ask any young person, perhaps, do you watch the news? They will tell you no. Will you participate in the election? They will tell you they don't even remember the last time they were, up country and quote-unquote shags, where they would mostly or oftenly go to register. They will tell you that they are not interested in politics. There are those who will tell you even they don't know who their woman representative or even MCA is. What do we need to do?
What we need to do is to be people of integrity. First and foremost as leaders. I have told you that what has curtailed the participation of most of our young people in political processes are the promises that were made and never kept. Now, if we begin there and then we look at what the real needs are, and just to put it clear, we have a generation that's really ripe for harvesting to make this nation great, because most of our young people want to make a difference. They want to live a life of purpose. And whenever they're engaging with something or a process, they want to see that the end product will actually have meaning. Now, unfortunately, our politics does not deliver that to them, which is why most of them are disengaged. So we must first go back to our constitution and look to implement it so it can deliver value to Kenyans as they envisioned it when they were participating in the constitution-making process. Now, that aside, we must go back and ask, how is it that we have formalized bad behavior in our governance? That we have a government that can disregard court orders. We have leaders who talk about another arm of government participating or engaging in activism when they are doing their job. this talk makes people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because someone asks, if I'm part of this, am I going to end up looking like those people who all they do is talk and deliver nothing to those who put them in office? So that disconnect must be addressed. That when you have a job to do, you need to deliver value to the people who gave you that job. That way, then the young people will see the need to be part of the whole process.
Perhaps then one would ask, is it because we are seeing also, not so many young people vying or coming out to vie for these positions from the presidency all the way down to the MCA? But we still do have, a few examples of members of parliament, young members of parliament, but that appears not to be incentive enough. On the flip side, apart from the young people not coming out to register as voters, they are also not interested in taking up these positions of leadership.
Well, far from it. In the last election cycle, we had a huge number of young people that gave themselves to the political process by contesting. But look at where we stand today. Were it not for the ruling that was given last week that declared Section 22 of the Elections Act as unconstitutional, we would have about 4 million young Kenyans, the ones we are appealing to come out and register, locked out from contesting in the next election. Why? Because for you to have a degree in Kenya, you must go through a university which takes you between 3 and 6 years.
Yeah.
You finished Form 4 when you are 18. So clearly there is no one who is in the age category of 18 and 22 that has a degree. So if you're telling this person that they cannot run in an election, you're already disincentivizing the process. So let us look at the needs of our people directly. Let us know that as young people, we have varied needs. We have those who are from the urban areas. We have those who are from the pastoralist region. And even in urban areas, we have the elite, we have those in the slums, we have those who are working, we have those who do not have a job, and things like that. So we must actually look to fix the problems, not just give it a blanket cover, like I have seen some leaders do. Like you just mentioned, people saying, now we need for the president to lift the curfew so young people can hang out and party. That's not why young people want the curfew lifted. Young people want for the curfew to be lifted so they have an opportunity to be more productive, so they can even afford the partying that people keep talking about.
Young people in the previous generations, Muthiora, they used to say what the governments of the time used to do was kazi kwa vijana, pesa kwa wazee. And that has, morphed into various cycles, if you could call it, in terms of those who are given positions of leadership, while ODM leader Raila Odinga has promised, for instance, for CSS will be young people.
Yeah.
Are these incentives that perhaps would enable or would endear to young people to just participate? Because as it stands right now, so many people, so many young people, even those we interact with, those you'll ask around, and they will tell you, even on election day, they just intend to sleep or just relax in the house. What are those incentives? Because it's something that is really keen, or rather specific to this voter block of 18 to 35. Well, perhaps those between 30 and 35 may be interested, but perhaps those of the lower age between 18 and 30 are more interested in other issues, education. Some will tell you they are looking for scholarships. Yes. Things of politics, or rather political issues, are not things that they are pretty much fancy, because some have even had the opportunity to study abroad, Muthiora, and they say abroad the campaigns are door to door. They are not these political rallies, mega political rallies. Do we need to change the whole political cycle?
Yes, we do. If we are to make Kenya great, then we have to change the whole process. Now, in the past, we have had programs that are geared towards empowering the youth. But these programs, the bottom line was not to empower the youth. It was so someone could get a tender and make a killing out of it. The kazi kwa vijana that you just mentioned, the people who made the most money were actually the grizzlies, the older generation, the octogenarians who are back again in the scene and telling us that they're going to reinvent that which didn't work going forward. So when the intention was not to empower, and the young people saw that that's really what they were doing. Forgive them for not being too enthusiastic. But let's encourage them that even when a lot of rot is in our society, there is an opportunity to clean it out if we keep at it. But if we stay away, that rot tends to grow. If we change the way we are doing things, say for instance, I focus on what the needs of those living in the slums are. And I come with policies that target them. And deep down, I believe in those policies. If elected to office and I deliver, then the people will see the need to be part and parcel of this governance process. But if it's the same shenanigans we've seen before, where once you elect a member of parliament, they go away and come back after 5 years, then the people will keep shying away from participating in the process because they see themselves as bridges that enable others while they continue to languish in poverty. So things must change. These promises that have been made, I'm glad they have been debunked. Like, for instance, there are people who are saying why the bottom-up cannot work. There are those who are saying, we have heard your promise about giving 6,000 to vulnerable households. But then in an economy that is debt-ridden, this is not sustainable. You cannot take away money from people that are working to give to people who are not working. What we need to do is to enable those that are not working to become proactive by having a market that is functional to create jobs and ensure that business enterprises thrive. So we must rethink how we do things.
Indeed.
That's how things are going to improve and change and get every Kenyan to participate. Otherwise, they'll feel they're just a bridge that's been used by other people.
Indeed, and that's a good place to wind up this conversation of, urging the young people to come out and register as voters. I have been speaking to Muthiora Karriara, who is, a young person, of course, and of course, who is a presidential aspirant.